Welcome to Life Stories, where we share powerful tales of resilience, courage, and transformation. In today's story, we meet Lauren Miller, a woman whose seemingly perfect life was shattered by betrayal. When her husband, Mark, left her a cruel note declaring their marriage over, Lauren's world could have crumbled. But instead of breaking down, she found strength she never knew she had. Her journey from heartbreak to empowerment will inspire anyone who's ever faced life's toughest challenges. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to hear Lauren's incredible tale and start today's journey of self-discovery and triumph. My name is Lauren Miller, and until a few months ago, I thought I understood the life I was living. I was 36, married for 12 years, and building what I thought was a future with my husband, Mark. But life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? Sometimes, it's the subtle whispers of doubt that signal a storm is coming. Other times, it's loud and unapologetic, like the note Mark left for me on our kitchen counter. It was a Friday morning, and the soft winter light filtered through the curtains of our home in Austin, Texas. I had just returned from a morning walk, my head buzzing with plans for the day. I was excited about finishing a new jewelry collection I had been designing, pieces I hoped would take my little business to the next level. But all those plans dissolved the moment I saw the note. The words hit me like a slap. I'm done with you and your boring life. I'm taking everything. And this house is sold. By the way, enjoy what's left. His handwriting, messy and rushed, was scrawled on the back of an electric bill, a fittingly cold choice for such devastating words. I stared at it, my hands trembling, as the gravity of his message sank in. Anger, shock, betrayal, they all came flooding in. But oddly enough, so did something else, a strange sense of calm determination. I reached for my phone and typed a simple response: "Saw your note. Thanks for the heads up." It wasn't spiteful or emotional. I just couldn't bring myself to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I placed the phone down and stared at the kitchen I had renovated with so much love, the cabinets we'd chosen together, the paint color I'd fought for. This was supposed to be our home, the place we built our lives. And yet, in a single note, Mark had decided it was no longer ours, but his to take. You might think I was blindsided by this. But I wasn't. Not entirely. The signs had been there for months. Maybe even years. Late nights at his accounting firm. Phone calls he took outside or behind closed doors. The way he closed his laptop whenever I walked into the room. And then there was the way he looked at me, not with love or admiration, but with indifference. Mark hadn't always been like that. When we first met, he was charming, attentive, and supportive. He was the one who encouraged me to start my online jewelry business. Back when it was just a dream, I remember the way he celebrated my first sale, popping champagne and telling me how proud he was. But somewhere along the way, his pride turned to resentment. My little hobby, as he called it, began to thrive. I worked hard, building a loyal customer base, crafting intricate pieces by hand, and even landing contracts with department stores. My success seemed to unnerve him, though he never said so directly. Instead, he dismissed my accomplishments with offhand comments and quiet disapproval. Looking back, the cracks in our marriage were painfully clear. Mark had always insisted on managing our finances, despite my own background in business. At first, I trusted him. But about 6 months ago, while paying bills, I noticed large sums of money disappearing from our joint account. When I asked him about it, he brushed me off, calling them business investments. I knew then that I needed to protect myself. What Mark didn't know was that I wasn't as naive as he thought. Quietly, I began to prepare for what I suspected was coming. I opened a separate bank account and moved my personal savings there. I started documenting every suspicious transaction, every unexplained absence, and every lie. My best friend, Jessica, who happened to be a top divorce attorney in Dallas, walked me through my legal rights and helped me understand my options. During a recent home renovation, I made a point to refinance the house in my name, a decision Mark barely noticed because he was too preoccupied with his so-called investments. So, as I stood in the kitchen, rereading his cruel note, I wasn't entirely unprepared. Hurt? Yes. Angry? Absolutely. But broken? No. In a strange way, I felt liberated. The pretense of our marriage was over. I no longer had to tiptoe around his ego or pretend that everything was fine. He had underestimated me, as he always had. And now it was my turn to show him just how wrong he was. I took a deep breath and smoothed down my blouse. I wasn't going to fall apart. Not today. Mark had made his move. But he wasn't the only one who knew how to play this game. Quietly, I walked to my home office, the small space where I designed jewelry and dreamed of a brighter future. It was time to set things in motion. If Mark thought I was going to let him walk away with everything, he was about to learn just how strong I had become. I opened my laptop, my fingers steady as I began typing an email to Jessica. The subject line was simple: it's time. The morning after finding Mark's note, I woke up to a house that felt foreign to me. It was eerily quiet. The kind of silence that wraps itself around you and amplifies your thoughts. But instead of wallowing in self-pity, I reminded myself why I had prepared for this moment. Mark may have thought he had all the control, but he was about to find out just how wrong he was. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee as the sunlight streamed through the windows. It felt strange to sit in a space that had once been so full of life and shared moments, now reduced to a battleground of broken promises and betrayal. My mind wandered back to the years we had spent building this life together. Or so I thought. I remembered the day we bought this house. The excitement in our eyes as we talked about renovations and starting a family. I thought we were a team. But as the years passed, I started to see how one-sided our partnership really was. Mark had always been the one to control things, our finances, major decisions, even how we presented ourselves to friends and family. At first, I didn't mind. I trusted him. I let him take the lead because that's what I thought a good wife did. But his dismissive attitude toward my business and my dreams slowly chipped away at me. It wasn't just the snide comments or the lack of support. It was the way he made me feel small, insignificant. He wanted me to stay in the shadow of his success. But I had spent years quietly building something I was proud of. And now, that quiet determination was my greatest strength. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was Jessica. "Morning," she said when I answered, her tone calm but firm. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied. Jessica had been a godsend through all of this. She had listened to every detail, helped me document everything, and created a plan that was airtight. Months ago, when I first confided in her about Mark's suspicious behavior, she didn't hesitate. "Lauren," she had said, "you're smart, resourceful, and stronger than you realize. Stop letting him write the narrative. It's time to take control." I spent the next hour going over the paperwork Jessica had prepared. Divorce filings, evidence of Mark's financial misconduct, and records of every shady transaction he had made. Each document was a piece of a puzzle that painted a clear picture. Mark had been siphoning money from our joint accounts, likely to fund his gambling habit and whatever other schemes he had been hiding from me. As I reviewed the documents, I felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at Mark for betraying me, but relief that I had taken the steps to protect myself. The house, which he had tried to sell without my knowledge, was safely in my name. The savings he thought he could drain had already been moved to my private account. And thanks to Jessica's guidance, I had everything I needed to fight back. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Marcus, our real estate agent. His face was apologetic as he explained that Mark had contacted him to list the house. "He's been pushing for a quick sale," Marcus said, shifting uncomfortably. But I noticed something odd in the paperwork. He doesn't have the authority to sell without your signature. I smiled faintly, appreciating Marcus's attention to detail. You're absolutely right, I said. The house is in my name. Mark doesn't have any legal claim to it. Relief washed over Marcus's face as he realized he wasn't caught in the middle of some legal mess. Thanks for clarifying, he said. I'll make sure this goes no further. After he left, I sat back down at the table and took a deep breath. Mark's plans were already starting to crumble. And he didn't even know it yet. For years, he had underestimated me, assuming I would always play the role of the supportive, compliant wife. But those days were over. I stared at my laptop screen, my resolve hardening. If Mark wanted a fight, he was about to find out just how much of a fighter I could be. By the time Mark sent me his first text demanding I sign the paperwork for the house sale, I was already miles ahead of him. His message, short, cold, and laced with arrogance, was everything I expected. Call the real estate agent and sign the papers. You've got 24 hours to pack your stuff. The gall of it. I read it twice, then set my phone down without replying. Jessica had warned me about this exact scenario. Don't engage, she'd said. Let him think he's in control. The more confident he feels, the less cautious he'll be. It didn't take long for Mark's confidence to waver. Over the next few days, I received a barrage of increasingly frustrated messages. Why isn't the house listed yet? Marcus says there's a problem with the paperwork. Stop playing games. Each one was a small victory. Mark had always been composed. The picture of control. Seeing cracks in his facade reminded me that his arrogance was his greatest weakness. It was late one afternoon when the doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised to find Mark standing on the porch, his face flushed with anger. He didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past me into the foyer, his voice rising as he demanded answers. What did you do? Lauren, Marcus says I can't sell the house without your signature. That's impossible. I handle all the finances. I crossed my arms, standing my ground. Did you? Mark, like you handled our joint accounts, or my business accounts, or were those just more of your investments? My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. His expression shifted, first confusion, then a flicker of fear. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. But his bravado was slipping. Oh, you don't? I walked to my desk and pulled out the thick folder Jessica and I had compiled over the past few months. I laid it on the coffee table, flipping through the evidence with deliberate precision. How about these unauthorized withdrawals? Or these emails discussing your plans to sell the house? Or maybe you'd like to see the private investigator's report about your business trips to Vegas. Mark's face paled. You hired a private investigator? He asked, his voice cracking. No, Mark, I said, my tone sharp. Jessica did. You remember Jessica, don't you? My best friend. The one you always dismissed because you thought she was just my coffee buddy. She's also one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. And she's been helping me for months. Mark sank onto the couch, his arrogance deflating. This isn't how this was supposed to go, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. You were supposed to, he stopped, catching himself. What? I said, stepping closer. Break down? Beg you to stay? Let you take everything while I crawled into a corner? That's not happening. Mark. Not anymore. For the first time, I saw genuine panic in his eyes. He looked around the room, as if searching for something to anchor him. But there was nothing left. His carefully constructed narrative was falling apart. You don't understand. Lauren, he said, his tone softer now. I made those decisions for us, for our future. No, Mark. I interrupted. You made them for yourself. You thought I was too stupid, too naive to notice. But here's the thing, you never really knew me at all. At that moment, Jessica arrived, her briefcase in hand and her expression professional but firm. Mark's face fell further as she introduced herself. Mr. Miller, she said, her voice steady. I'll be representing Lauren moving forward. I suggest you direct all further communication through me. Mark tried one last time. We can fix this. Lauren, he said, his voice desperate now. We can talk. No. Mark. I replied, opening the door and gesturing for him to leave. We're done. And any future discussions will be about the consequences of your actions, not about fixing what you destroyed. As he walked out, I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders. I had stood my ground. I had faced the man who tried to break me and showed him just how wrong he was. For the first time in years, I felt free. And I was just getting started. In the end, what Mark thought would break me only made me stronger. The note he left that morning wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. One where I finally reclaimed my life. I transformed the house he tried to sell into a sanctuary of creativity and empowerment. My jewelry business, once dismissed as a hobby, is now a thriving enterprise that inspires women around the world to follow their dreams. Most importantly, I've rediscovered my worth, my strength, and my voice. Mark's betrayal taught me the greatest lesson. Sometimes, losing what you thought you needed is the key to finding out who you truly are. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring tales of resilience, courage, and new beginnings. Stay tuned for more.